Welcome back to the Rad City Design Studio. This week, I wanted to play around with two of my very favorite UV resin techniques. Today, we're going to be playing with bubbles and we're going to make satin from Saran Wrap. So go grab some supplies and let's make something awesome. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this tutorial and be sure to send it to a friend. I started by making myself 4 rings using 20 gauge craft wire. I wasn't concerned about the material, didn't worry about the color, nothing fancy, I just needed a few circles. I laid those circles on my silicone pad, and then I filled each with a shallow layer of UV resin to create the very base of my bezel. I made sure to cure this very well, and then I turned each disc over to reveal the underside. Now, because it was on a matte finish silicone pad, it's going to have a little bit of a frosted effect because it has that dull finish. Now, anytime your resin cures touching something else, it's going to take on the texture of whatever it was touching. So that's why we get this effect. Now, totally fine because I'm going to add another layer of resin that's going to easily hide that. I added a third layer of resin, then placed a piece of saran wrap directly on top. I used my fingers and the end of a brush to create ripples and to give it some texture. For this first piece, I wanted the lines to be thin and sharp, so I kept the plastic a little bit more flat because then I wouldn't get as deep folds in the resin. I held my lamp about 10 inches or so away to start and then slowly got closer to it for about 45 seconds to make sure that it cured, but that the plastic wrap didn't melt. I definitely didn't want that to happen. Now, I made a second disc by following the same steps, but this time I used the plastic to make bigger ripples in the resin and kind of pushed it around to get interesting shapes and textures. You can also create cool effects by only applying the plastic wrap to just one side or one section of your disc. Like here, I have one side that's very flat, and then I have the other side that's textured. I love how cool this effect is. It almost looks like you scooped up a pond ripple right in the center of your hand. Let me walk you through my other favorite technique. Now, you may have seen this one before. It's really fun and it's really easy to do. I started again by turning my disc over to the matte side and then applied a thin layer of resin to the top. I had a little bit of dish soap in this bowl, so I added some water, and then I used a combination of just stirring really quickly with the end of a paintbrush and also blowing bubbles using a straw to create a foam. And you can create the little tiny bubbles, or you can try to get some larger bubbles to form. The nicer and thicker your soap is, the better your bubbles are going to be and the longer they will last. So I scooped up some of the foam and then I very delicately laid it on top of that uncured resin. You may need to repeat this a few times until you get enough bubbles on there to stay for a little bit. And you really just kind of have to keep trying until you get the result that you want. And there's nothing to say that you can't just keep layering up these bubble layers. Now, I cured with my lamp for about 2 minutes. Your bubbles are going to start to pop, so you do want to work kind of fast. I made one disc with like larger cells of the bubbles and then another with little tiny bubbles. And I wanted to give them a little bit of razzle dazzle. I think them being just clear and plain like this looks really cool, but I wanted some color. So on the front of each disc, I brushed them down with some blue chameleon powder, and Mica does a really great job of clinging to the folds and the curves of these two techniques. I also added a few drops of violet alcohol ink to the back side of each of these discs, and I used a little bit of heat from my lighter to evaporate the alcohol and leave behind the color. Now, I gave both sides of the discs a very good top coat to make sure that all of the color and the pigment was sealed in nicely and then it wasn't going to smudge. And you can keep building these up until they're as thick as you want, or until you get, the heftiness that you're looking for. Now, these little resin cabochons turned out so gorgeous. Absolutely love how the color shifts in the light, and the textures are so cool. Almost like this one kind of almost looks like dragon wings or dragon skin. Now, you're guaranteed to never have two that are exactly alike, so you can use this to make some really fun varieties in your jewelry. I drilled 2 holes along the side of each disc, and then I added jump rings, and I linked these together using a little bit of jewelry chain and a lobster clasp to make a really fun necklace. And I think there's so many different ways that you could dress this up. I may actually break this back down and add in some beads or something like that. I hope you had a great time crafting with me today. If you haven't tried these 2 techniques yet, now is definitely the time to head to the kitchen and get all your supplies. So go make something awesome today, and as always, stay rad. If you learned something new from this video, check out my playlist for even more techniques and projects just for you.